What? I don't have to adjust it? So, good morning, everybody. I hope that you're all doing all right today. Got a few people talking about the test 3 marks in the chat, as those were released not too long ago, probably less than an hour ago. So if you haven't seen your test 3 marks, those are now released on Avenue. If you haven't seen that yet, so there you go. So, there has been the quite right observation that the marks on Test 3 are somewhat lower than they have been on the 2 tests that went before it. And the sort of inevitable question from the students whenever there's a test that's got an average that's below average, if you want to put it that way, is, am I going to do anything to remedy the lower than the average? So let me address that. So the first thing to do is to get a very clear picture of what the actual average is, because if you just look at what the average as stated in the Avenue statistics is, that gives a somewhat misleading impression of what the actual average for the class was. So, generally speaking, when I calculate an average for a test, I exclude those people who did not attempt the test from the calculation of that average. I don't think that's fair. So, if you take a look on Avenue, as Norwegian Cruise Lines correctly points out, the average as reported by Avenue is a 62%. However, if you take into account the fact that there were a large number of people who did not attempt the test, if you exclude those people from the calculation of the average, that actually brings the average up to a 72%, well, actually a 71.8%. But that's actually that's not terrible in my estimation. Generally speaking, I kind of have this rough heuristic that I use to determine whether things were bad enough to require or warrant me performing a post-fact adjustment of the grades. And normally that is, I look at the average and I'm sort of thresholding around the 70% mark. If you if you take a look, like, generally speaking, a 70% is something like a B minus, and, you know, if the average is somewhere in the 70 to 80% range, normally I consider that to be, that was a fair test. So, you know, whether you guys think it was a fair test is another thing entirely, especially considering the first two tests had averages in the, you know, 80s and 90% ranges. So, so from that perspective, I'm not necessarily inclined to do anything about the average. So, so that's one factor. The other factor that I'm taking into consideration when I am talking about these, when I'm considering whether or not to do anything about the test 3 grades, is I'm taking into consideration the category average, right? So if you take a look on Avenue and view the statistics for the midterms overall, and this is sort of taking into account the previous 2 tests and the bonus marks that people received on those previous 2 tests, the average on that is an 85%, which is an A. And generally speaking, I don't necessarily think it's such a bad thing for, you know, basically I feel like to some degree the marks have been insulated by the previous 2 tests and the outstanding achievement that had been occurring on those 2 tests. So, in general, I don't believe that the test 3 grades need to be modified at all. I think, like if you consider this from the perspective of a professor who is giving a course, it's not a reasonable expectation that, you know, 50% of the students in the class are going to get over 90% on the course overall. You know, that might be your experience of how things work in high school, but it's generally very far from the truth in a university setting. So let me, and also if you'd like some more, marks thrown at you with respect to the tests in as a general category, I would recommend filling out the course evaluations, as I am 100% still committed to the sort of graduated rewards program with respect to course evaluation completion. So, actually, it would be really good to see where we are with that, wouldn't it? Let me see if I can look that up very quickly. Evals. I'm sure that'll be interesting to everyone. So, log in. Doop-a-doop. Don't look at my Mac ID. I will hide. There. I'm currently hiding, so you can't guess the number of characters in my password. There we go. There are no courses on this system for me to evaluate. Oh, well, I know that. That's not what I'm asking for. Good lord. Let me see here. Statistics? Let's see. Well, we're not in this list, so top 10 courses by response rate. So if you're not in this list, and this list starts at 41, then you guys need to... Oh my gosh, 1JC3 has 61%, and I don't... Oh, come on, guys, we gotta beat 1JC3. Gotta do it. Come on. Come on, you can't let me down like this. 1JC3 is 3rd overall in the whole school, and I'm not on the list. I'm just offended now. That's it. That's it. Rimby is not my password. So let me just address some of your concerns, because I think that might be a useful thing. Whether bonus marks from previous tests will get carried to other tests? Yes. So the bonus marks that you received on previous tests are applicable to the category of tests. So if you got like 105% on test 1 and 105% on test 2, those two 5% will be applied automatically to test 3. Is the final going to be this hard? Probably. Yep. To be honest with you, you should ask Mark how difficult that test was relative to the one that I set in winter 2020. That actually wasn't. That was an extremely fair test relative to some of the tests that I've accidentally given people over the time. But anyway, yes. Seriously though, the difficulty varies more by the subject that we're covering, rather like what topic we're covering in the course, rather than, shall we say, like I'm not like. It's not like I'm saying, okay, I'm going to make this question extra hard on this thing. It's just that the material is naturally escalating in difficulty as the course goes on. So, because the final is going to cover material from the entire course, it's going to cover some of the easier topics as well as some of the harder topics. So there you go. Question 2, lots of complaints about question 2. Yeah, generally speaking, I think I looked at the test case analysis, and when people got a question wrong, it was question 2. There were some problems with the file being incorrect, as I understand it, and that may not have been corrected until a little later in the game, but yeah. But as I said, I don't think that the test overall, the grades were that bad on it. So, can you get more than 30% for the midterm section? Nope. Everybody, please do the course eval. Yep. Question 2 was confusing. Yep. Password is not potato. No, potato. Yeah. Everybody, please fill up the evaluation. Oh, maybe we are in the science department, but that's like across the whole dang, that's across the whole dang institution, right? Philosophy is in there, for example. So, come on, guys! We can't let 1JC's theory beat us. Professor Farmer is giving us 2% bonus if 100% of people do it. Well, that's, haha, sure. Is he including in that the number of people who've dropped the course and are still in the system? In my experience, even these guys won't hit 100%. So, we'll see. So if you'd like some more specific feedback about your test 3, if you'd like more specific feedback about your test 3, Mark is like completely overwhelmed, and he's been working this whole semester. He's been working double or triple the number of hours he's actually being paid for. So I hope you've all been appreciating his efforts. But if you guys would please direct your emails about feedback over test 3 to either Indika or Swale, those guys will be happy to help you guys out with this thing. But I need to shift some of that workload away from Mark. Yep. Can't see 1MD3 on the course eval stats for some reason. Can you show how rollback works in SQL? It's not in the slides, and I've never done it, but maybe. What's Indika's email? All of the emails are in the course syllabus, I think. I'm pretty sure. Is it? That's a good question. Is that a thing I forgot to update at the beginning of the semester? Ha! Oh man, there are still 2 TBAs in there. Shoot. The 2 guys that I've asked... okay. I will make a post. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Mark, if you wouldn't mind throwing that up in an Avenue announcement as well, that would be awesome. Yeah. Okay. Maybe. There should be. I should be able to see. Well, anyway, status? Statistics? Statistics. Well, at any rate, I'll find it when I'm not eating up lecture time. Anyway, so that's all the case. And I suppose I should talk about the exam a little bit. I've been getting questions about the exam. Those of you who are observant observers of observances will note that we actually have 9 days until the exam. I tried logging in, but it said I didn't have anything. So, I'll figure it out. My goodness. All right, Juicy, I'll take a look. I'll take a look again. So, with respect to the exam, it would be good for us to talk a little bit about it. You're not seeing how many characters my password is. Ha, there we go. So, yeah, it's like you have successfully logged in, but there are no courses in the system for you to evaluate. It thinks I'm a student. I'm not. Humanities. Okay. Anyway, I'll email these people about it. But, is there not a practice exam? Let's see, exam review. Alright. I will take that. Let me make a note about that. I'm sure I have it somewhere. Exam practice cues. There, now I've made a note about it. Put it there. So, anyway. So, about the exam then. It's coming up quick. It's like probably one of the very first days that an exam can be. For those of you who are in first year, this means that you won't have a whole lot of time to study for it. But it also means that it's done and over with very early on in the exam period. So, you know, it's a blessing and a curse. And I think the longer you go on in all of this, the more you'll find that it's more blessing than curse. Oh, you only need 95% for the 2 bonus marks. Well, that changes everything. You know, I have the same... I guess I haven't applied it to, like, the entire class, and that's why people aren't doing it, but... I have committed to a scheme, and that is the scheme. There you go. So, yeah, 95% response rate is almost unheard of, just so you know. But, you know, you're well on your way. No way. Don't you know, I am like one of those magical people that can hit multiple keys on a keyboard, but only make one sound from the keyboard. So that's fake news. Just so you know, people, this is disputed. I want Twitter to put the disputed tag on this. So, anyway. So so with respect to the exam format will be the same as the test format. I've received a number of people asking, hey, the registrar is saying it's from this time to that time. What gives? Let me explain why that is the case. In order to be scheduled a day in the exam period, I needed to submit the paperwork insofar as being scheduled an official exam slot. However, we are still going to be doing the 24-hour test, right? You'll have the 24-hour period to write the exam in, same as the tests. It'll be made available through Jupyter and through Avenue, same as the tests. In just about every single respect, it's the same as the tests, right? So the only difference is that it'll be, an exam, which means it covers the whole course rather than just a few weeks of the course. So there you go. Yeah. So with respect to the scheduling thing, please use the course syllabus as your guide to what the proper, please use the course syllabus to guide your planning for when the exam is going to be written. Yeah. Yeah, the part of the problem with the exam being on the day that it's on is that pretty much all the TAs, save 2 of them, have an exam on that day as well. So I guess I'm going to be dealing with the Piazza questions myself. Holy smoke. Would I consider dropping your test 3 mark? No. No. Not at all. Is the exam open book? Yes. The exam is open book in the same way that the tests have been open book. So, yeah. Also, it has occurred to me that, yeah, it's precisely the same as the midterm. The only thing is the test is going to be a little longer because it's an exam. It has occurred to me that we have made assignment 3 due the 6th, which means that it can be submitted as late as the 9th, and then the exam is on the 10th. So I would recommend, planning around that. If you want to have any time for general study and not just working on assignment 10, then, I can't push that due date any further back. I can't have an assignment that's due after the exam. It just doesn't work. So so with respect to the difficulty, it's gonna be what it's gonna be, like, you can expect something, you can expect things that are going to be in line with the difficulty curve represented in the assignments and the tests so far. What is the policy for having more than one exam in 2 days? You'd have to ask the registrar about that. Yeah, and also, Mark doesn't make the tests. I make the tests, and Anna helps me make questions for the tests. Yeah. So, yep. It's up to you how to manage the rest of your course with respect to the marks and stuff. Keep in mind that we are still keeping the policy where the lowest assignment grade gets dropped, so if you just can't fit into your schedule assignment 10, and you've done every assignment up to this point, then, that one will just sort of disappear and you won't have to worry about it. But yeah. Anyway, it would be good, I'd like to finish off the databases topic today, so we'll get into actual stuff at this point. So, last time, we were just getting into the concept of an SQL injection attack. So, you can, because Python allows, and this is kind of a problem with programming generally. It's definitely possible to set up things in such a manner that other people, malicious actors, might be able to exploit them if you're not careful. That's why it's always important to abide by whatever programming conventions exist within the paradigm that you're programming in. Always adhere to best practices with respect to safety. With SQL queries, when we execute an SQL query from within Python, the query itself gets encoded as a string. So you may be tempted to just simply use string concatenation in order to be able to insert elements into an SQL query. Such as a name of a thing that you're searching for, right? Or in this case, a rating. The problem with that is that if somebody knows that you're doing this, and they can easily check to see if you're doing this by testing out their theory, by just entering an SQL injection attack and seeing if it works, the problem is, if you know a little bit of SQL, you can insert characters into the string that's being added to the string that creates more SQL commands. So, if, for example, you enter, in this particular instance, PG, close quotation, or X equals X, with a missing close quotation, that will actually, that will get the database to barf up its entire contents to you. This is problematic because, while it may seem trivial in this instance, restricting access to a database is an extremely important thing to do if you are, for example, it depends on the sensitivity of the data that's contained in the database. If the database is, for example, people's passwords to a banking site or something like that, that would be, for a hacker, that would be a high-value target. So you can be sure that one of the first things that you would check with respect to data security is whether or not your system is vulnerable to SQL injection attacks. So, when user input is mixed into a query string like this, applications become vulnerable to an SQL injection attack. This occurs when the attacker injects their own SQL commands as a string that accidentally gets executed by the database. Accidentally. This can be used to see more data than is intended. It can be used to trick login checks and gain access without knowing a password. It can be used to access data from other tables using the join command. You have to know what the tables are called, but, if you're allowed if you're allowed a certain number of attempts, then you have that number of attempts to try to correctly guess what the other tables are named, and they're usually named something that makes sense. And you can even sometimes modify or delete data inside of the table. There's a difference between being able to modify a single SQL statement and being able to inject multiple SQL statements. And the more information you can put in an SQL statement, or a series of statements, the more dangerous it is, the more dangerous the attacker can be to the system. So, for example, what if the user enters the following? PG, semicolon, delete from movies where X is equal to X. So this deletes every entry in the database. Now, within a modern hacking context, normally a hacker is not necessarily just interested in data destruction or disruption. They're interested in data harvesting because that data has value. However, you do occasionally get these types of attacks where people are just out to hurt people. So, this ends up creating the following query. Fortunately, cursor.execute will only execute one command and will complain if there are multiple commands. So this guy has some protection built into it that it prevents you from executing multiple SQL commands at once. So this type of attack would fail in this particular instance. However, there is execute script which has no such restriction. And in this case, we're dropping the table movies entirely. So execute script can execute multiple SQL statements at once. So this is a much, much more dangerous situation if it is subjected to an SQL injection attack. Because they have inserted the comment character here, any text after this semicolon is ignored. There's a related function, execute script, which will execute multiple commands, and some programmers might use this intentionally or accidentally. So there you go. Checking for questions. Oh. Oh boy. Okay. That's I would appreciate if we could just tone down the sass a little bit. I mean, I understand that there is a necessary outlet for sass, but is there a way to try to catch a input, see if it's a valid command, and if so, not execute it? Yes, actually. And also, if we were in a in-person setting, would you go over the slides the same or on a board or something? It would be more or less the same, except I would have a chalkboard and I would be doing stuff on a chalkboard sometimes. But yeah, it's part of the goal with respect to the manner in which I set this course up for being online is that it minimized the amount of difference between the online version of this course and the in-person version of this course. Like, that was a conscious goal when I set out to remake this course. It didn't move very far off of the in-person version. But anyway, so yeah. So the question is, can we do something to try to check this? Well, yes you can. There are certain characters that you can be pretty sure if those characters appear in an SQL query that they are probably an injection attack. For example, the semicolon. Very rare is the case where you would have a legitimate semicolon occurring. And if you are in one of those cases, you probably know it. So, all you have to do is insert a few lines of code in between here, search either movie ID or title to see if the strings that have been provided by the user contain a semicolon or a comment character, or even quotation marks are probably invalid with respect to the user. So, you could prevent that code. Hello? Hopefully our downtime is limited this time. Hello? 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 Testing? Testing? That wasn't too bad, actually. That's okay. So, with respect to that whole problem, I did have, like, the technicians have been to my house twice in a week to try to fix this problem, and yesterday we didn't have any problems, so I assumed the testing, 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 testing. Well, on the plus side, when it happens, it seems to be recovering from it much more quickly. Testing, 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 testing. Hello, testing, testing. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about this, folks. It certainly changed in character versus the last time this was happening, but certainly the problem is still persistent, so I'm going to have another word with the ISP. I wonder if they're going to send me 3 technicians in a week. It's got to be the modem, though. I think the modem's probably fried from a power surge. Yeah. Alright, things seem to have stabilized. Okay. And that started about, say, yeah. 3 minutes isn't too bad. It's not as bad as it was before, but it's still not great. So anyway, continuing on from where we were, we have this comic from XKCD, which I was reading to the void before, but I'll read it to you guys so you can hear it. Hi, this is your son's school. We're having computer trouble. Oh dear, did he break something? In a way. Did you really name your son Robert Drop Table Students? Oh yes, little Bobby Tables we call him. Well, we've lost this year's student records. I hope you're happy. And I hope you've learned to sanitize your database inputs. So there you go. So, SQL injection attacks are actually the #1 security threat to web applications. #1! Most people who get hacked through this. According to the Open Web Application Security Project, many large-scale breaches are due to SQL injection attacks, such as, if you remember that big breach of Yahoo in 2012, where nearly 500,000 login credentials were stolen, that was an SQL injection attack. There are many more of them which are listed on Wikipedia. Some of which are interesting. Maybe later. Yeah, okay. How about a recent one, eh? In August 2020, an SQL injection attack was used to access information on the romantic interests of many Stanford students as a result of insecure data sanitization standards on the part of Link, a startup founded on campus. Seems like this kind of stuff was peaking in 2014, though. Ah, the UN. Haha. Yes. Johns Hopkins University. Man. Yep. Anyway. So that's, so this is actually a problem that people actually have. And as things sort of move forward into the future, we have to make sure we don't forget the means of exploitation that existed in the past. So, how do you avoid an SQL injection attack? #1, sanitize user inputs by filtering out single and double quotation marks and other prohibited characters. This is better than nothing, but it can be unreliable, and makes the O'Connor family unhappy. I think that's a reference to the Terminator series? I'm not sure. Better approach is to construct SQL queries by using special programming language features that safely insert user inputs. So you remember that question mark thing that we saw earlier on in the slides. That is a thing that automatically checks things to make sure that it's not, malicious code. So please use that wherever possible. This acts as a placeholder that is automatically bound to the subsequent value in a safe way. So there you go. So that's how you avoid SQL injection attacks. I had a question through the chat that was kind of pertinent to the exam. So the SQL material is stuff that's testable on the exam. If so, what form will that take? It depends. In the past, I've done it in two ways. Normally what I do is write a query for this, write a query for that as sort of warm-up exercises. I consider formulating an SQL query to be in the category of almost a multiple choice or a short answer question. It's not like it's making a Python function. So right, they're unhappy because they went from O'Connor to O'Connor. Right, gotcha. Sometimes you do have legitimate apostrophes. Thank you, Paul. Maybe it was a reference. I don't know. Add-in. Anyway. So. So I've either done that in the form of a short answer question. Last time I did the course, I made the bonus question on the exam, you have to design SQL injection attacks, which was, I think it worked pretty well as a question. I'm not going to do that twice in a row, though, so you can count that out. But yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see. I've got ideas swishing around in this head of mine about it. Anywho, so anyway, yeah. I will take general questions. 5 minutes isn't really enough to get into the next topic, so I will take general questions for the next 6 minutes until class ends. Mark prefers whiteboards, but I can't. I have to prefer a chalkboard. It's about the friction between the chalk and the chalkboard. Whiteboards are frictionless, and it bugs the heck out of me. Although you do get, I guess they are a little bit cleaner. When will I update the practice test? I'll do it sometime today. Will I hold review sessions? Yes. Yeah, I can see us doing that. Let's see. How does the week laid out? We don't generally usually have anything on Wednesdays. Yeah, how about we have a review session on the Wednesday? Would that be cool? Say... Oh, I don't know. Maybe you guys can propose a time? Would it be possible to make a sandbox database to receive all inputs, test it there, and if the input is clean, then get it sent to the real database? Yeah, you could do that. That seems like a lot of overhead, though. How do I think the course evals for this course will end? I don't know. I haven't received any data on it, so I can't really make a prediction on it. Can I drop the machine learning lecture and do the review session? No. The thing is, we have I think the last day of classes is the 7th, so we actually do have a class on the last day of classes, as well as the one on Thursday, so that's 2 lectures. Maybe one of them will be a review session. Could we do review instead of the Tuesday class? Yeah, I think that's reasonable. We'll do machine learning on Thursday. Can we do the machine learning lecture in R, like the language R? That would be nice, but no, it's Python. Wednesday from 2:30 to 3:30. I'll do a poll or something. Review session. Poll Avenue. Yeah. I'll do a poll on Avenue and see when people want the review session. Yeah. So normally what I'd do is I would just ask for like this type of thing is so much easier when you're in person, because you're like, okay, how about this time? And everybody raises their hand. Okay, how about this time? Everybody raises their hand. You know? But no, I'll do a poll on Piazza. I'll see if I can dig up the practice exam material and actually make the exam as well. Hopefully in advance of the review sessions for the exam, so that I can drop hints about the exam. Yeah. So, yeah. There we go. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns? I'd like to finish this off by saying something encouraging to you guys. Like, this has been a really crap semester, and if you manage to survive it, that will have been a huge accomplishment. And I realize we're in final push territory, and that you guys are feeling probably pretty washed out, burnt out. Everything's kind of like, brah. But you know something? If you can pull this together, you'll be so, doing all of this, being under these types of pressures, will be excellent preparation for being out in the real world, where these types of pressures definitely also exist. Life doesn't get easier for you once you graduate. So, you can do it. I believe in you guys. You're a smart bunch of... You're smart, and you're capable, and you guys can do this. So, don't give up. Okay? Well, anyway. So, it's in our best interest to give you more time to make the exam before the review session. That way we get more hints. Yes! That's true. Oh, I heard a squeak. Remy! Meow! Come here! Come here! They want to see you on stream, I'm sure. I'm gonna see if I can grab her. Yeah. There we go. Remy the kitten says she wants to get away. Remy the kitten says, "You guys can do it. I believe in you. Also, I am a kitten." So, there we go. Bloop. Alright. Well, I got a class to get to. We got her from the SPCA, so if you want a cat, the SPCA is definitely a good way to go about getting one. But anyway, I got a class to get to, so I'm going to sign off here. But keep trucking, guys. You guys can do it. You know, this too shall pass. Take her easy.